In the beginning, there is always a moment that feels like a wall. Not a metaphorical wall, an actual, cold surface your mind keeps pressing its forehead against. The bank app that refuses to change. The empty side of the bed. The ache in the body that whispers, again, that you are trapped inside the story of not yet. You can hear the world's verdict in the smallest things. A notification that never arrives, a call that never comes, a door that stays shut, a mirror that offers the same evidence it offered yesterday. And if you listen closely, closer than you've ever listened, you'll realize the wall is not outside you. It is inside your senses. Because there is something almost everyone misunderstands about reality. They confuse missing with invisible. When something is missing, it does not exist. It cannot be found. It cannot be touched. It cannot be entered. But when something is invisible, it exists right now, in full, in certainty, in wholeness, only beyond the range of the instrument you've been relying on. And the instrument you've relied on most has been the five senses, trained like soldiers to salute only what is already manifested. Tonight, I want you to consider a dangerous possibility, that what you want has never been absent from life, only absent from your current state. That is the promise I'm making to you in the first breath of this journey, that there is a hidden door in your mind, and if you walk through it, you won't just get what you desire, something deeper will happen. You will meet the version of you who no longer needs permission from circumstances. And in the final moments of this narration, you will understand why that version has been waiting in silence, not to rescue you, but to replace you. Now listen. Right now, in the space where you sit, there are worlds passing through you. Signals, frequencies, entire conversations moving through the air like invisible rivers. If you had no device, you'd swear they weren't real. Yet with one small instrument, a voice appears from nowhere. Music pours out of silence. A face lights up on glass. You don't create the signal, you tune into it. You don't manufacture the broadcast, you receive it. And that is the true function of imagination, not entertainment, not escapism, not pretending. Imagination is an instrument, a receiver, a faculty that detects what the eyes cannot confirm yet. It does not invent reality, it selects it, it enters it, it occupies it. Most people are living as if the physical world is the only broadcast. They wake up and tune into the channel of yesterday, the channel of facts, the channel of evidence, the channel of I'll believe it when I see it. And the channel responds faithfully. It shows them more of what they already accept. It repeats their current identity back to them until they confuse repetition with truth. But there is another channel, another dimension, if you will, a realm where the fulfilled desire is not a fantasy, but a present fact. It is not formed of bricks and numbers and names on paper. It is formed of states, of consciousness, of identity. And the law is simple, but it is absolute. Your world is the shadow of the state you most consistently occupy. So the question is not, how do I force life to give me what I want? The question is, who would I be if it were already done? And can I live from that place so completely that the shadow has no choice but to change? This is where most people fail, not because they lack desire, but because they cling to the identity that contradicts it. They want the fruit, but they refuse to become the tree. They want the sunrise, but they keep praying to midnight because midnight is familiar, and familiar pain is still comfort. The mind would rather hold on to a known suffering than step into an unknown freedom. It will, at least here you know how to survive. It will call your limitation realism. It will dress fear in the respectable clothes of logic. But you, if you've stayed with me this far, you are not here for logic alone. You are here because something in you has grown tired of negotiating with the surface of life. You are here because you have felt it, this quiet scandal in the heart, that maybe reality is not what it seems, that maybe the visible world is not the source, but the echo. And if that is true, then your desire is not missing. It is invisible to the state you've been living in. If you want wealth, wealth is not missing from reality. It is moving through the world like a vast ocean. If you want love, love is not missing from existence. It is beating in other chests, blooming in other homes, living as an ordinary fact for someone else right now. If you want health, health is not a myth. It is a living condition in countless bodies at this moment. So why does it feel missing to you? Because you have not tuned into the state where it is natural. And the only way to see the invisible is to become the instrument that can detect it. That is why all true transformation begins with an internal death, not physical death, identity death. The ending of the person who keeps asking, how? The ending of the person who keeps counting evidence like a prisoner counting days. The ending of the person who keeps scanning the horizon for permission. Because you cannot hold two opposite identities in the same consciousness and expect reality to obey both. One will dominate. One will shape your reactions. One will dictate your expectations. One will become your atmosphere. And the atmosphere always wins. So the work is not to get what you want. The work is to become someone else. Now, right here, early in this journey, let's make this intimate. If you could let one identity die tonight, what would it be? The identity of not chosen? The identity of not enough? The identity of always behind? The identity of too late? Let it rise to the surface for a second. Not to shame you, but to name it. Because naming a prison is the first step toward opening the door. And if you feel that inner recognition, leave a short declaration in the comments. Something effortless, something true, something you can write in a few words, like a quiet vow to yourself. I choose my new state. Write it if it resonates. Not for me, for you. Because the moment you declare it, you begin to hear yourself differently. You begin to feel the shift under your own words. Now imagine a man in a small room in a harsh season of history. Imagine a city heavy with desperation, streets crowded with faces that have learned to lower their eyes. Imagine him with talent, yes, but talent alone does not pay for passage across an ocean. Talent alone does not calm the terror of uncertainty. He has a desire, not a small desire, but a deep one, a return, a reunion, a homecoming. And every fact around him screams that it cannot happen. No money, no open path, no guarantee, the calendar closing in like a fist. And this is the moment where most souls surrender. They mistake the current evidence for the final truth. But what if the evidence is only a mirror? What if the mirror is only reflecting your state? So the instruction given to him is not, save more, hustle more, plead more. The instruction is almost insulting to the senses. You are already there. Not you will be, not you might, not one day. Already. This is where the rational mind panics, because it wants a bridge made of steps. It wants a plan. It wants to see the staircase before it lifts its foot. But consciousness does not cross bridges like the body does. Consciousness moves by assumption, by occupancy, by identity. You can sit perfectly still and enter a different reality. You can close your eyes and feel the temperature of another life. You can hear voices that aren't physically present, and yet, in the inner world, they are unmistakably real. You can live an experience without a passport, without money, without permission, because the inner realm is not limited by the outer. And here's the secret most people never accept. Your imagination is not a toy, it is the womb of form. When you consistently occupy a state inwardly, the outer world rearranges itself to match. Not because the world is nice, not because fate finally takes pity on you, but because this is law. The visible is the obedient surface of the invisible. But it requires something from you that the old self will resist with everything it has. You must stop visiting the new state like a tourist. You must move in. You must sleep there. Not once, not twice, until it becomes home. So he learns to fall asleep not as a man hoping to travel, but as a man who has arrived. He imagines the textures, the atmosphere, the ordinary details that make the scene feel lived in. Not fireworks, not dramatics, the quiet naturalness of, this is my life. And days pass, and weeks pass, and nothing changes outwardly. This is the test, because the senses start screaming again. See, nothing happened. You're wasting time. You're lying to yourself. And this is where nearly everyone breaks. They treat the delay as a denial. They interpret the silence as proof of failure. They go back to worshiping the visible because the visible is loud. But the invisible is not loud. The invisible is certain. So he persists. He holds the state when the old identity tries to crawl back into his chest. He refuses to measure progress by evidence. He refuses to bargain with time. He refuses to ask, but how? Because the state itself contains the how. The state is the seed, and the seed carries the tree inside it. And then, when the outer world finally moves, it moves in ways that seem like coincidence. A letter, money, a door opening at the last moment, a rearrangement of circumstances that looks like luck to the untrained mind. But it isn't luck, it is the shadow catching up. And here is the part that matters most. The real transformation was not the trip. The real transformation was the death of the old identity that believed it needed proof before it could be. Because after you witness the law even once, you are never the same. Something in you becomes dangerous to your old limitations. You stop begging life. You start selecting life. You start understanding that your job is not to chase reality, but to claim it, quietly, inwardly, persistently, until the world has no choice but to obey your assumption. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, I've tried this. I imagined, I affirmed, I pictured it, and then I fell back. Doubt swallowed me. Fear returned like a tide. What do I do when I can't hold the state? Listen carefully. Falling back is not proof you can't do it. Falling back is proof the old identity is still alive. It fights because it is being replaced. It screams because it is losing territory. So when you notice yourself slipping, when you catch yourself scanning the world for proof, don't punish yourself. Don't call it failure. Call it what it is, a moment to return. And if at any point in this journey you feel a quiet nudge to share this message with someone you love, someone who's been carrying a heavy story in silence, follow that nudge. Not as a favor to a video, but as an act of care. Sometimes love looks like sending the right words at the right time. Now, let's go deeper, because the next layer is where the mind either wakes up or turns away. Most people believe the order of creation is evidence to belief to feeling to life changes. But the true order is the reverse. State to feeling to assumption to evidence appears. You do not become wealthy because you see money. You see money because you become wealthy in consciousness. You do not feel loved because someone proves it. Someone proves it because you live from the state of being loved. That is why half measures fail. You cannot occupy two homes at once. You cannot be kind of confident and kind of defeated and expect reality to choose the confident version. Reality chooses the dominant state, the one you return to when no one is watching, the one you breathe when you're alone, the one that speaks in your reactions. So stop trying to decorate the prison cell. Stop trying to think positive while still believing you are powerless. This is not about painting a smile over a wound. This is about becoming someone who no longer needs the wound to explain their life. And that requires a fierce inner decision to stop asking the outer world for permission to change, to stop waiting, to stop negotiating with delays, to become now. Because the state you occupy is not a performance. It is not a mask, it is a dwelling. And when you truly dwell in it, something strange happens. You stop trying. Trying vanishes because trying implies distance. Trying implies you are not it yet. But being is effortless. The person who is secure doesn't rehearse security all day. The person who is abundant doesn't beg the universe each morning. The person who is loved doesn't constantly test whether they are lovable. They simply live from it. Their mind moves differently. Their body breathes differently. Their choices carry a quiet authority that cannot be faked. And here's how you know you're entering that territory. When you think of your desire and you feel calm, not numb, not forced, calm, a settled certainty, like thinking about the fact that the sky exists, like remembering your own name, no tightness in the chest, no frantic urgency, no desperate checking, just done. And if you can't feel that yet, don't worry. You're not broken. You're just still tuned to the old channel. But you can retune. And because I want this to be more than inspiration, because I want it to become a lived experience, here's a quiet invitation that you can take without breaking the flow of this journey. If you feel ready to build your dream life step by step, there's a 21-day challenge waiting in the description or pinned comment. Not as pressure, just as a pathway. A structure to help you persist long enough for the new state to become natural. Now back into the fire. There is a reason the world feels solid. It is slow. The visible realm is delayed. It is yesterday's consciousness wearing today's clothes. That's why people panic. They plant a seed and dig it up the next morning to see if it worked. They affirm for 2 days and then stare at their bank account like a judge. They imagine love on Monday and then feel devastated on Tuesday because no one texted. But the outer world is not the place to look for the beginning. It is the place to look for the echo. So when you decide a new state, you must accept a sacred kind of blindness. Blindness to immediate evidence and devotion to inner reality. Not denial, not irresponsibility, devotion. You can pay bills and still refuse to worship lack. You can go to the doctor and still refuse to worship illness. You can live in your current apartment and still refuse to accept that it defines your future. Because your circumstances are not your identity. They are your old assumptions made visible, and assumptions can be changed. Now, here comes the first rekindling hook, right at this threshold, because if you've been listening closely, you might feel a question forming like thunder behind your ribs. What if the reason your manifestation hasn't arrived is not because you didn't imagine hard enough, but because you kept returning to the version of you who doesn't have it? And if that is true, then the solution is not more effort. It is a deeper surrender, a death. So let's speak plainly about death. The old self will not step aside politely. It will bring you memories like weapons. Remember what happened last time. It will bring you statistics, worst-case scenarios, other people's stories. It will point to your age, your past, your mistakes, your timing, your resources. It will say, be reasonable. But reason, when it is chained to the senses, is just fear with a better vocabulary. So you must learn a new kind of reason, reasoning from the end, living from the fulfilled state, letting the inner scene become more authoritative than the outer noise. This is where the modern world makes it harder, because the modern world trains you to react instantly, to refresh, to check, to compare, to measure, to chase dopamine like a starving animal. And the law of consciousness asks for the opposite. It asks you to become still enough to feel a reality that has not yet entered your senses. It asks you to become loyal to the unseen. So how do you do it? Without becoming fake, without feeling like you're lying to yourself. You do it by choosing something that feels natural, not the whole mountain at once, a single doorway into the state. Instead of imagining a mansion if that feels too far, imagine the feeling of ease when you open your wallet and you don't brace yourself. Imagine paying for something without the sting of fear. Imagine checking your account and feeling neutral, because neutrality is what abundance feels like once it's normal. Instead of imagining a perfect relationship, if that feels too distant, imagine the quiet warmth of being chosen. Imagine your phone lighting up and your body not tensing. Imagine walking into a room and feeling wanted, not evaluated. Instead of imagining perfect health as a giant concept, imagine waking up and stretching without pain. Imagine climbing stairs without thinking about it. Imagine the ordinary miracle of a body that feels like home. You see, this is not fantasy. This is selecting a state through simple lived details. And then you return to it, again and again until the mind stops arguing. Because persistence is not repetition of words. Persistence is loyalty to identity. Now, I want to take you into an image. Imagine your current self as a room you've lived in for years. The furniture is arranged a certain way. The air smells familiar, even if it's stale. There are scratches on the floor from pacing. There are old pictures on the wall labeled, "That's just how life is." Now imagine the desired self as another room in the same house, one you've never lived in, but it has always been there. You don't need to build it, you need to enter it. But the moment you step toward the door, the old room calls you back. At least I'm real. And this is the turning point, because the only reason the old room feels real is because you've given it your presence for so long. The new room will feel real when you inhabit it, that's all. Presence creates reality. So tonight you practice presence, not as a technique, but as a relocation of self. When you imagine, don't watch a movie. Be inside the scene. Feel it from the first-person perspective. Let it be ordinary. Let it be calm. Let it be done. And then, in the daytime, when the world tries to pull you back into the old room, you don't wrestle with it. You simply return. Return like breathing. Return like coming home. Return like remembering who you are. Because you are not your circumstances. You are the one who chooses states. Now we move into the second block of this journey, deeper, darker, and more powerful. Because the next part is where you stop seeing imagination as a method and start seeing it as a throne. You have been trained to treat imagination as secondary, as childish, as optional. But what if imagination is the only place where true causation begins? What if every object, every system, every relationship you've ever seen was once invisible? A phone was once a private certainty in someone's mind. A bridge was once a scene held in consciousness before it ever touched water. A symphony was once silent, existing only as feeling and inner hearing before the orchestra ever raised their instruments. Creation has always moved from invisible to visible. The modern mind forgets this because it worships the finished product and ignores the origin. But your life is not exempt from this law. The life you want must be lived inwardly before it appears outwardly. And that's where the fear rises, because the mind says, "What if I live it inwardly and nothing happens?" Listen, if you live it inwardly and it doesn't appear yet, it does not mean it failed. It means the shadow is still catching up. The only failure is abandoning the state and returning to the old identity as your home. So here is a truth that will either liberate you or terrify you. You are always manifesting, not sometimes, always. Every day you occupy the state of behind, you manifest more evidence of delay. Every day you occupy the state of unwanted, you manifest more silence. Every day you occupy the state of struggling, you manifest more reasons to struggle. Because the law is impersonal. It does not punish. It does not reward. It reflects. It simply says, yes. So if you want your life to say yes to something new, you must become the one who is already living it. And this is where the deepest transformation happens. When you stop trying to change the world and you start changing the one who perceives it. Now let's talk about wealth. Not money, wealth. Wealth is not numbers. Wealth is a state of being unthreatened by life. It is an inner posture, a quiet assumption that you are supported. And poverty is not just an empty account. Poverty is the reflex of bracing, the habit of tightening when you think about the future, the nervous system trained to expect loss. So when you attempt to manifest money while still bracing, you are sending two messages at once. Your words ask for abundance, but your being expects absence. And life answers your being. That's why this is not about affirmations you repeat while panicking. This is about the death of the panicker, the end of the bracer, the removal of the inner flinch. And that death does not happen by force. It happens by occupancy. You occupy the state of safety so often that the nervous system learns a new home. You practice the feeling of being supported until supported becomes normal. And once it's normal, the world starts arranging itself around your normal. People call it chance. People call it timing. People call it connections. But it is the mirror obeying the state. Now, before we continue, I want to give you a second rekindling hook. Because somewhere in you, the old story is already trembling. And I want you to feel why. What if the universe is not testing whether you deserve your desire, but testing whether you will remain faithful to it when the world still looks the same? Because that is the true initiation, not getting what you want, becoming the one who can hold it. Now, let's talk about love. Love is not hunted, love is reflected. When you feel chosen, life sends choosing. When you feel cherished, life sends cherishing. When you feel worthy, the world rearranges itself to match your worthiness. But if you feel unlovable, even when someone approaches, you will interpret it through that state. You will doubt it. You will sabotage it. You will squeeze it until it breaks. Not because you are bad, but because your identity is still living in the old room. So the work is not to find love. The work is to become the one who is naturally loved. And you do that by entering the end. Not the end as in final outcome, but the end as in fulfilled state. Imagine the ordinary moments, being introduced as someone's partner without surprise, receiving affection without suspicion, planning a future without bracing for abandonment. Make it natural, make it lived, and then return to it even when the phone is quiet, because the quiet is not proof, it is just quiet. You don't stop believing in dawn because it's midnight. You don't stop believing in spring because it's winter. So stop letting temporary appearances rewrite eternal law. Now, health. Health is not something you beg the body for. Health is a state you inhabit so deeply that the body reorganizes around it. This is not denial of symptoms. It is refusal to crown symptoms as king. It is the decision that your identity is not sick, even if your body is currently expressing sickness. Because the body is an expression, a garment, a mirror, and mirrors can change. So you begin with small scenes, waking rested, moving with ease, feeling gratitude for your body like it is already your ally. You do not strain, you do not force, you assume, you occupy, you return, and slowly the body learns the new instruction. Now, let me say something that might be the most modern and most necessary truth of all. If you keep consuming content about manifestation without becoming the one who lives it, you are turning revelation into entertainment, and entertainment will never change your life. Only occupancy will, only identity will, only persistence will. So if you feel the pull right now to stop being a spectator of truth and become a participant, honor it, because the pull is your future self calling you. Now we approach the third block. And this is where the secret begins to glow beneath the surface. You've heard consciousness creates reality before. But the real question is, How does consciousness choose? How does it lock in? How does it stop wavering? It locks in through surrender to naturalness. Not excitement, not desperation, naturalness. The fulfilled state is not fireworks. It is normal life. When you truly have something, you don't obsess over it. You don't check it every hour. You don't perform gratitude like a ritual to keep it from leaving. You simply live. So the goal is not to feel intense. The goal is to feel settled, to feel the quiet certainty of course. And the moment you taste of course, you've touched the doorway. Because of course is the language of the fulfilled state. So here is what you do when doubt comes. You do not debate doubt. You do not argue with it like it is a person. You simply return to of course. Like a parent guiding a child back to bed, like a shepherd guiding a sheep back to the path. Calm, firm, consistent. And one day you will notice something shocking. The doubt comes, and it finds no home in you. It knocks, and the door does not open, because the old identity has died, not through violence, through disuse, through neglect, through your refusal to feed it attention, because attention is life, and what you starve weakens, what you feed grows. So choose carefully what you feed. Feed the new identity. Feed the fulfilled state. Feed the inner life that matches your desire. Now, this is the final rekindling teaching, the one that carries you toward the hidden promise I made at the beginning. What if the greatest manifestation is not the thing you receive, but the person you become who no longer fears losing it? Because that is the real treasure. And that is why the final revelation is not about money, love, or health as objects. It is about the end of dependency on appearances. It is about sovereignty. It is about discovering that you are not here to be a victim of the visible world. You are here to be the one who selects the invisible and calls it into form. Now I want you to feel the weight of this in your chest. There is a version of you right now who already lives your desired life. Not someday, not after you fix yourself, not after you earn it. That version exists as a state in consciousness, and the reason you haven't met them is not because they are far away. It is because you keep refusing to leave your old room. You keep asking the old identity for permission to become new, but the old identity will never grant it. It can't, because granting it would be agreeing to its own death, so the permission must come from somewhere else. From you. From the deeper you, the one who is tired of living by delay, the one who is done being loyal to pain, the one who is ready to be reborn, not as a better struggler, but as a new being. And here is the final truth I promised to reveal in the last moments. Your desire is not the destination. Your desire is the doorway. It is consciousness calling you to evolve. It is the higher state summoning you upward. And when you finally step through, when you live from the end so naturally that it stops feeling like practice, you will realize you were never trying to get a new life. You were being invited to die to an old one. So tonight, let the old self loosen its grip. Let it fade like a shadow at sunrise. Let it whisper and complain and show you evidence. Let it do all of it while you remain unmoved, because you have discovered something the senses cannot understand. That reality is not created by what you see. Reality is created by what you are. And what you are can change now, not when the world changes. Now. So choose your state. Choose it with tenderness, with firmness, with devotion. Return to it when you forget. Return to it when you fall. Return to it when the day feels heavy. And one day, you won't be returning anymore. You'll just be there. And then the world will do what it always does. It will mirror you. It will reflect your new normal. It will call it coincidence. It will call it luck. But you will know the truth. You will know you tuned into it first. And if you want to stay close to this frequency, if you want to keep walking this path where the invisible becomes visible, where the inner becomes outer, where identity becomes destiny, then let subscribing be your quiet decision to remain aligned with it. Not as a button, but as a vow, that you are staying with the work, staying with the awareness, staying with the new self as it learns to live. Because you are not here to watch transformation, you are here to be it. And somewhere, beyond the senses, beyond the old story, beyond the wall you used to call reality, your fulfilled life is already breathing. All it has ever asked of you is to enter.